Cats, dogs, bats, butterflies, nobody is safe in Miami-Dade County. And let me tell you, no animal is safe around this guy, Dave Williamson. He loves animals, medium rare.
Okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
This guy, when you talk to most comedians and they're talking about, smoking, they mean pot.
Yeah.
But when Dave Williamson's talking about smoking,
talking about a brisket.
Yeah, he's talking about a beautiful, beautiful, glorious. The man blends barbecue and comedy.
It's two of my favorite things in the whole world, and somehow I figured out a way to over and over again bring them together. And nothing makes me happier when I can do something that involves both barbecue and comedy.
Dave Williamson, comedy.com. He is our guest co-host for today. And now we're going to talk about animals that we don't eat, Dave, if you don't mind.
No such thing.
A man who needs no introduction, Miami legend, Miami-Dade treasure. For 43 years, he has worked at ZooMiami, formerly Metro Zoo. He is the face of the zoo, but he is joining us today, not in that capacity as a Miami-Dade County employee, but as a private citizen. And I say as a private citizen because he's probably going to get canned. They're probably going to fire him because he is risking it all, doing exactly what they told him not to do, which is to be Ron. Like, don't be Ron. Suppress your inner and outer Ron. Ron, you're risking your job. Literally. I mean, you were told not to speak up about this issue. What is the issue, and why are you willing to lose your job of 43 years over it?
Listen, they want to build a water park in this property on ZooMiami property, on the ZooMiami parking lot property, adjacent to Pine Rockland Forest, which is the single most critically endangered habitat in South Florida. Environmentalists, researchers have gone in there and gotten the data to prove that parking lot area is critical to the survival of endangered species. They use it as a foraging area. Right now, there are no lights in that parking lot. It's dark at night. That's when the animals go out there and forage and feed. They use it as a conduit to get from one patch of the Pine Rockland to the other patch of the Pine Rockland. The bottom line is to build a water park there would totally remove their ability to forage. It would be removing their ability to move from Pine Rockland to Pine Rockland. Basically, it'd be helping to wipe out the single most endangered bat in the entire country, not to mention other animals. And I'm a conservationist, Billy. I've worked over 40 years trying to build up credibility and a reputation as someone who cares about wildlife and protecting wildlife. Those of us who know about the property there know adjacent to that property, they built a Walmart, they built an LA Fitness, they built hundreds of apartment buildings. We were told when they were knocking down Pine Rockland to build that area, which is called the Coral Reef Commons, that we were forbidden from speaking on that. It had nothing to do with us. And now, we're all told we can't, even though we're saying, God, this is just affecting the forest. It's affecting the health of everything around it. Can't comment it. And you know what? I'm embarrassed and ashamed to say I listened. So I kept my mouth shut, and I really profoundly regret that. I'm not going to do it again, especially on something in our own backyard. They originally wanted to put a hotel there. I wrote the developer in no uncertain terms and say, I will go ballistic on you if you think you're keeping a hotel there. So they removed the hotel. But then all this new data came in showing how these animals are using that parking lot, that area. And when I say parking lot, it's not just paved over nothing parking lot. There are tree islands throughout that parking lot. There are grasses growing in different areas throughout that parking lot. And what I want to tell you, Billy, is they're trying to hang their hat on saying, well, we're not cutting down any pinelands. We're not building on the pinelands themselves. No, you're not. You're building on areas that are crucial for foraging to feed the animals that live in those pinelands. It's analogous to saying, you know what? I can protect my house. If you want to protect my house, you say you can't build anything on my property, on my house. But if you destroy the roads and you destroy my access to the grocery store and my access to go to work to make a living, then I'm eventually going to either starve or die or be forced to move out. The problem with the animals that live in that Pine Rockland, there's nowhere to move to. They're just going to die. And extinction is forever. And I hear this backlash saying, well, we're going to produce millions of dollars for the zoo. Listen, let me be really, really blunt here. Let's remember Parrot Jungle. The promises made with Parrot Jungle when they moved it from Pinecrest to Watson Island. Yeah. The zoo was promised $2 million in revenue from the Parrot Jungle that turned into Jungle Island. To this day, the zoo has gotten not one penny. Wow. Not one penny. All kinds of promises were made with projections about how many people were going to go. There's going to be all this huge attendance. Nothing of that came to fruition. It was all basically pie in the sky numbers so they could get the commission to approve that entire transfer over. The city of Miami lost tons of money on that. As we speak, Jungle Island is trying to rebuild itself, rebuild a brand, still hasn't made money to this day, and has cost the Miami citizens a ton of money. I see the same thing happening for this water park at ZooMiami. I don't know of any water park really south of Palm Beach that's ever been successful for any length of time. Plus, listen, there are other places that this thing can be built. There are people in Homestead, people saying, we got great property down here that's not environmentally sensitive. And that's another thing. I know I'm rambling on here, but listen, when the voters voted for this back in 2006, over 15 years ago, a whole lot has changed since then. We've learned a lot. Billy, I voted for it in 2006. I voted for it. We've now learned how critical this habitat is for these endangered species and the health of the pine rockland. So I changed my decision because we've learned this. Okay, it's like people who've denied climate change. For how long have we denied climate change? It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Are we still saying that now? Really? Why do we have to wait? Why do we have to take the test to get the grade? Why can't we listen to science, listen to research, and understand this is critical habitat? The zoo uses as its mantra, conservation, connecting, caring. Really? So we're going to sell this out now for a water park. And then the answer is, yeah, but it could provide millions of dollars for the zoo. So what you're in effect telling me is that conservation is for sale. For the right price, we'll sell it.
Yeah, Ron, I read the op-ed, and I got to say it was super inspiring, first of all. And just to clarify for people that don't, get it or follow, you're talking about the animals that in the environment around the zoo, like on the zoo property, not specifically just the animals that live within the zoo enclosures.
Absolutely.
And
No,
stuff
we're talking about the native animals, the native wildlife of Florida. Understand that the pine rockland on ZooMiami property, ZooMiami is located on 740 acres of property, of which a significant portion of that is pine rockland habitat, the single most critically endangered habitat in the United States and the largest piece of pine rockland outside of Everglades National Park. Within that pine rockland are several endangered species: the bonneted bat, several butterflies, some plants. There's several insects. All these animals are endangered species, don't occur anywhere else on Earth. And keep in mind, every year we're discovering new species in that pineland. It is the most biodiverse natural habitat in South Florida. So this is something that needs to be protected. It is a treasure. If we lose that, that I hate to sound cliche-ish, but that term, extinction is forever, is real. Because if we lose these species, all the money in the world is going to buy them back.
And honestly, do we need a water park? I had an ex-girlfriend who loved to go to water parks, and I said, can't we just stay home and pee on each other? At least we know where it comes from. You're not Trump. Don't do that. Let's just swim in a bunch of urine. I don't understand about the whole damn thing.
A little tangent here.
So let me
a Walmart and a water park. What are they trying to do to that part of town?
Let's talk about this, Ron. So we've already slashed and burned some of these pine rocklands to build a Walmart, a car wash, a La Fitness, as we call it in Miami. But let me ask you this. You wrote something really compelling that I found there, which goes to your point about the Miami Wilds developers arguing that, this is just a parking lot. We're not, it's already paved. What's the big deal? You said something really interesting about the protections that were supposed to be in place for the development that is already there. And it has disrupted, in fact, the climate and the environment for these animals, right?
Absolutely. They have what they call these HCPs, habitat conservation plans, that the developer agrees to, that has to be accepted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department to give them the permits to build there. So, of course, the developer said, yeah, we'll do it. They signed the plan. But they haven't done it. They've already been in non-compliance for several things. The lighting is wrong. There are things that are already wrong in the building that they've done there, and it's changed the climate at the zoo itself. Billy, I've been going there, for over 40 years. It used to be, before that Coral Reef Commons was built, I drive down that drive to the zoo, and every morning you had this beautiful fog bank that was there. And that fog bank creates condensation and moisture that's important for the health and species of that forest. It also helps protect it against crazy fire. Okay, that's all gone. I have not seen a single fog bank since that Coral Reef Commons has been constructed. That's one thing. These developers will promise you the world because they know at the end nobody's going to enforce it. Nobody's going to make them comply to it. And I'm tired of it. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. It's not going to happen to me.
It's not even shame on you, Ron, because you had faith that they were going to compromise and live up to what they said to allow both to thrive. And if they keep getting greedy and whittle away what the zoo is, which is one of the last great throwbacks to when we grew up here and were kids, and you already mentioned the monkey jungle and the parrot jungle, and I won't even bring up the sea aquarium, but all these cool things that made Miami because of greed or negligence are now all water park. Might as well be Walmart's water park.
Let's not even bring up the traffic. The traffic, which is beyond ridiculous. Sometimes it takes me 25 minutes to drive 1 mile from the zoo into the turnpike entrance. And anybody who lives along Coral Reef or in that neighborhood, in that area, will tell you it is a disaster. We were promised traffic studies, which were never delivered. We were told, oh, no, we're going to alleviate the traffic. And now this developer is saying, because we're saying, well, if you open a water park, the traffic is already so bad, how are employees going to get to work? How are they going to leave work? And I said, well, we're going to make roads, special access roads for the employees, and they're going to build those roads over the critical habitat, over the pinelands. Do it again.
That's what this is really about. Ron's been late to work a lot lately.
Yeah, this is it. This is some NIMBY shit here is what this is, Ron.
I'm just done. Guys, I got to say something. I'm not going to quit. If they want to try to fire me, I can't believe that they would try to fire me. I think they could try to make my life miserable. But to try to fire me, I think would just expose them to so much more. It's like the old court proceedings. When a lawyer puts on a certain witness on the stand, all of a sudden he gives the other lawyer permission to cross-examine. And trust me, there will be some serious cross-exam. I'm tired of just towing the line because someone told me so. I only did that with my mom and my dad when I was a little kid. When I said why, and they said because I said so, that was good enough because they were my mom and my dad.
And you should, because you're literally an expert in this. And politicians specifically all the time go in hard on certain things and causes, and they don't know anything about it. And you are somebody who's an expert in that category in our community. And for them to not listen to you and at least live up to their compromise is asinine to me.
Well,
so
for me,
you should not be quiet, Ron.
I don't profess to be the expert in everything, but I have been talking to the experts that have not been questioned. I don't know why the commissioners haven't spoken, for instance, to our conservation manager at the zoo. He's the guy who runs these conservation programs. Been working so hard on this.
You know why, Ron? You know why. You don't ask the questions if you don't want to know the answers. That's why. And as expected, I expected anyway, the county commission did defer the vote this week. Because
I'm happy they did that.
Bullshit.
Well, no. Because to be honest with you, Billy, I really fully expected them. They were going to ram it through. They were going to say, "Listen, This is one deal. We're going to ram it through." But I am so profoundly appreciative to all those people who showed up when I couldn't because I had to be here in New York doing this. But there was just an overwhelming number of people that showed up there, and I'm sure they went, "Uh-oh, we need to just do something quickly about this because we just can't accept this now." And my understanding, I think only 3 people spoke for the thing, and there were hundreds there speaking against it. Yeah. And one of the 3 people speaking against it didn't even speak against the water park. They spoke against me. That's all they did. They just said,
but this is the MO, Ron. You were such a powerful voice. You made such a stink about it. They realized with all the bad publicity, they're going to defer it because they don't want to pass this in the sunlight. They want to do it in the darkness, while people aren't paying attention and looking, but they screwed up. They screwed up because what they didn't realize was you were going to be out of town this week during the meeting. And now that they've deferred it, you will be in town and you will be at the, as a private citizen, mind you, right? As a
now, we'll see what happens. They might say, "Oh, we're not giving you the day off." I'm serious. They might say, "We're not going to give you the day off," but I'll make it clear when they do that.
Ron Magill, safe travels. Thank you so much for everything.
Appreciate you guys.
Run.
Hey, if Ron does need a career pivot, we did do a comedy show together, the Monster Dongs of Comedy. So I'll get you some stage time, Ron.
I love you, brother. Take care. Have a good one.
To say it's been a rough week for Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is a massive understatement.
The Florida governor's own presidential campaign is floundering, and he's trailing the indicted ex-president by double digits in every poll.
Congressional maps drawn by Governor Ron DeSantis must be redrawn. A state judge ruled the maps unconstitutional.
Nibbling on pudding, and I'm losing my footing.
Who said that?
In every single daggum poll.
Do you honestly believe that's credible?
With ardent defiance, I deny climate science. All while the ocean's beginning to boil.
Oh, that's BS. Totally BS.
Wasting away again here in DeSantistan. searching for a normal human smile. If the Florida of today's tomorrow's USA, oh dear Lord, we've got no chance at all.
America, you are in danger, girl.
Burn through campaign bucks. Now a judge thinks my map sucks. Apparently voting should be totally fair. But Proud Boys and Nazis, they all still love me. The country they want is a vision we share. No Jews, no blacks, no gays, wasting away again here in DeSantistan. World's freest state if you're straight and white. That's right, so white. I get annoyed by 15-year-old boys like women. They don't deserve to have rights. If the Florida of today's tomorrow's USA, oh dear Lord, we've got no chance at all.
The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up. Oh, that's BS. No, totally BS.
You know, it's BS that as of this recording, the governor of Florida has not tweeted or honored or said anything about the passing of Florida's unofficial poet laureate, the Bard of Florida, Jimmy Buffett.
Unacceptable. I can put up with a lot of things in politics, but you better pay homage to Mr. Florida himself, Jimmy Buffett, when he passes away, and was one of the best things about your state.
Well, I mean, I think Marjorie Taylor Greene even tweeted about him. I mean, this is a layup. This is a gimme. Like, and by the way, if you really know anything about Florida, or if you have any soul at all, or understand the state that you are the governor of, you'd fly the flags at half-mast. Seriously.
You know what brings people together from both sides of the aisle? Cheeseburger in paradise.
You know,
everyone likes a pickle, French fried potatoes, food. That's what brings people together. Margaritas.
Do you always bring things back to food?
Always.
Must you always?
100%. It's all I think about, Billy.
And also, you assume that he has a soul. So
Yeah.
that's the
I assume he. Well, listen. When Rush Limbaugh died, he was the first person to honor him. And as far as I know, Rush Limbaugh, the only thing he contributed to the Florida economy was keeping the pill mills open with his Oxy buying. But I will say this right now, and this will really piss off the governor, that.
No, he's not listening.
That's probably,
You don't think
sure. Christina Pashaw listens every week. I bet Pashaw.
You don't think DeSantis listens to this?
I'm sure he does.
I will say this, that
Oh, there it is. There it is.
hang on. I want to do a spit take. I really want to do a spit take.
Oh, no, not Mike.
No. Here's what I want to say. Second only to Walt Disney, Jimmy Buffett has done more for this economy, for this state, to bring more people here than anybody else. Jimmy Buffett personified and actually taught all of us what it means to be Floridians. And to your point, Dave, transcends politics. It even transcends that Margaritaville lifestyle he was selling. And what it meant was, because the man sung about the beach, he sung about tourists, often derisively. He sang about sailing. He sang about the water. He sang about hurricanes. He sang
getting drunk and screwing.
Everything we love to do here in Florida. But the point is that to be a Floridian is to be concerned about the environment, because the environment is our economy. That's what it is. The water makes us money. The beach makes us money.
The drugs makes us money.
The booze makes us money.
Jimmy Buffett even got young Dave Williamson in middle school to read books. I was so enamored with Jimmy's story, and I found out he was an author. And yes. I liked reading when I was little, but when I got into high school, you have to read the Odyssey and Dante's Inferno, and it gets real, And when I heard that Jimmy Buffett was an author, I started reading fiction.
Yeah, Where's Joe Merchant, Tales from Margaritaville, best-selling author, no less.
Yeah, I like such captivating stuff for a kid who grew up here. And there's some more ties too, because I went to Auburn University up in Alabama, and he has some ties up to that area. I've been to New Orleans a bunch of times.
He dropped out of Auburn.
He did.
Jimmy did.
When I was at Auburn, there was a rumor that his daughter was there at the time, and I was like, I just want to be friends with her. Like, you know?
Savannah.
Yeah.
So they wrote a children's book together, Jimmy and Savannah.
Yeah.
That's the thing too, is like he's an extraordinarily accomplished
He's an economy in himself with all these different ways. And the thing, I always love this because I get like in my own head when someone's like 27 years old and they like Amy Winehouse and dies, and it makes me feel so unaccomplished when I'm like, what amazing art that person made. At the time, I was still going to frat parties at UM, you know, and that person's already accomplished all this art. And now I'm in my 40s and, you know, I've dedicated my life to, you know, putting art out there. And Jimmy, his 7th album was his first hit. You know, he pumped out 7 albums and then went mainstream and then still did all these things we're talking about, margarita machines. And there's an old folks community up in Central Florida where they all wear Hawaiian shirts and throw interesting parties. And I mean, it's just so interesting that he's done so much. Like, what a guy, dude.
And if you're a Florida dad who had a Florida dad, like this hurt. Like it really did. And I was like profoundly sad. We've been talking for like 12 years about making a documentary about Jimmy with Jimmy. And I think we should still do it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've seen Jimmy in concert more than I've seen any other artist. And I think I was thinking about it. The first time I ever saw him was at Marine Stadium.
No.
Which if people don't know, it was probably like early 80s.
Yeah. You were at that show?
On my parents' boat. I don't know how old I was, but I was very young, and got to see Jimmy perform at Marine Stadium. And then the last time I saw him was September 2021 at Red Rocks, where I got to open for Bert Kreischer at Red Rocks. And then we stuck around a night because Jimmy was performing the night. Well, I'll do you one better than that. How cool is this? As a lifelong Jimmy Buffett fan, Jimmy was performing the night before us and the night after us. And Bert's from Florida too, so he's a big Jimmy fan. So Bert told them, you can leave Jimmy's stuff on stage for our show. So when we went out to do our comedy show
at Red Rocks, band was set up.
The bongos were behind me, fake seagulls, fake pelicans, sand on the ground, beach balls. I'm like, I'm performing at Red Rocks in front of Jimmy Buffett's stuff. I mean, how cool is that, dude?
That's amazing. I mean, this he has the greatest last line of any song. Here's the thing. People know like the songs you know by heart. There's like 12, 13 songs that most people know of his. The man did an album a year for over 20, 30 years. It was his output and his songbook is ridiculously extensive. And 1978, Mañana, it's, I think, one of the greatest last lines of any song ever. And he says, I hope Anita Bryant never ever does one of my songs. It was funny, it was political, it was subversive, maybe a little too woke.
In Miami, we are definitely not woke.
But this is a guy that came to Miami from Nashville, to Key West and then to Coconut Grove and recorded at Criteria Studios and invented first a genre of music and then a lifestyle. And then he was the OG Florida man. Before Florida man had any of those negative connotations, it was like, he was the Florida man.
And he was a pilot too. I always connected on that too. I got my pilot's license when I was in college and reading in the books where he would fly his big seaplane around. And my dad, when I was growing up, flew ultralights down here with the floats on it. We'd land in the Biscayne Bay or on a lake somewhere. And there was just so many connection points I had with Jimmy Buffett where I felt like when I heard his songs or read his books, like he was talking to me.
And dude.
And I think a lot of people felt that way.
His song.
Everybody got their pilot's license, right?
And they're talking about it, and I hope they do it. They're talking about it, and I hope they do it, naming the Key West airport. The Jimmy Buffett airport, which they should absolutely.
By the way, I was in Key West 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to be in Key West doing a show in 2 weeks. And if I was just a few weeks off either direction of being in Key West during all this celebration of Jimmy Buffett.
Amazing.
Would have been such a cool thing to experience there.
I know you're going to have something to complain about, so you should call the Because Miami complaint line, 786 786-505-9842. Complain about Dave.
I thought you were specifically talking to me. I go, I never complain about it. I'm a pretty positive person.
786-505-9842. And I just want to say that Jimmy Buffett songbook is just boundless with just anthems and overflowing with love letters to my home state and pirates, dreamers, fruitcakes, and honestly, just when I feel like sailing off this godforsaken peninsula, Jimmy calls me back like a siren song.
Just get a cold drink, a boat drink, and put on some good tunes, and it reminds you of all the awesome stuff in this world.
Raise a margarita to Jimmy. It's 5 o'clock everywhere. Dave, Miami-Dade Mayor Daniella Levine-Cava has gotten the nickname Cruella Levine-Cava. She has not only for the people who say, "Oh, Billy, you never talk shit about Democrats on the." It's pay attention, look closer, listen closely.
Listen to the goddamn.
I talk shit about everybody. What are you talking about? It's like I both hate everything and don't talk shit about Democrats. Come on now, Daniella Levine-Cava, and here's the thing. It's my obligation because I told people to vote for her. And I will tell you that she has not just stabbed us in the back, the people who supported her. She has stabbed us like directly between the eyes. She doesn't even care enough to like sneak around behind. She's just going to have the respect to say, F you. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Roy.
So much editing.
Editing.
Damn it, man.
So much editing. So I tried to do a top 5.
Okay.
Dave, I tried to do a top 5 Daniella disasters since she took office 3 years ago. I couldn't do it because we always go over time. I couldn't get any fewer than 10. So it is a top 10 Daniella disaster, starting with number 10, the environment. We just talked about this with Ron Magill, so I don't really need to go into it, but it's a disaster. Number 9, her administration can't even do payroll correctly.
People aren't getting paid?
People are getting paid too much. People aren't getting paid. And now, don't worry, rest assured, they're doing an internal audit by the very same people who screwed up the payroll are now going to investigate the payroll.
I'm sure that'll be square.
Number 8, she took a creepy free trip to Qatar.
Soccer fan.
She is a big soccer fan, and her lobbyist set it up. He works for her and for Qatar. And so here's this misogynist, anti-Semitic, racist government who built soccer stadiums with slave labor, migrant slave labor, who died building a soccer. And she went there to learn how to do it for World Cup coming up I'm laughing. It's not funny.
I'm sure she had good intentions.
It's not funny. And she lied about how much it cost. And they do business. This is the worst thing you can say in Miami. Qatar does business with the communist regime of Cuba. Comunista! Comunista! Number 7, solid waste management is a show. I don't even know where to. This is like the basic stuff you want from your government, right? Make the lights go green and red.
Yeah, trash.
And collect my trash, right? Well, the director of Miami-Dade Public Works and Waste Management quit. He said, there's too much trash. We're going to need a construction moratorium, which is like half the economy, by next year because our incinerator burnt down in Doral.
With the incinerator itself burnt down?
It's a literal dumpster fire.
The incinerator got incinerated.
The incinerator incinerated itself, and we're doubling our trash fees. And the environmentalist mayor, it looks like on her watch, they may end the recycling program because it's too expensive. Number 6.
Send it to Qatar.
Qatar.
I
played the
Q-tip.
Guitar.
Number 6, you down with UDB? Yeah, you know me. The UDB is the urban development boundary. It's where we say...
I knew that.
Yeah, it's where we say, hey, we're going to stop slashing and burning the Everglades and allow the natural habitat here to exist and the clean water to exist.
I remember my parents telling me like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, we used to ride horses right here. And now they're all the way out to that far west and they can't go any further because the Everglades there. And now it's like twice as far.
And now we get Chick-fil-A here where we used to ride horses because hate tastes great. So and by the way, we keep moving the UDB line while the environmentalist mayor is sitting there at the wheel. We just keep slashing and burning, building warehouses and bullets in the most extraordinary natural habitat on the earth. Number 4.
Number 5.
Number 5. Daniella Levine-Cava, our progressive Democratic mayor, appointed a Proud Boy to a county office. This is a man who, along with Enrique Tarrio, who just got
like the main dude, right?
Number one, Miami's number 1. The longest sentence, 22 years.
We have leaders down here.
For January 6th defendant. He got sentenced. He was protesting with this guy, Kevin Cabrera, who is now elected to the Miami Dade County Commission because of Miami. And Daniella Levine-Cava thought it would be a good idea to put him on a board for international trade. So he is the proudest boy of them all. And so far unindicted. Number 4. MCM is still getting county contracts. What is MCM, you may ask? You already knew. You already knew. MCM is the company that is co-owned by cousins of the former Miami-Dade Mayor Carlos Jimenez, and they built the FIU Bridge.
Oh.
That collapsed and killed 6 people.
I heard about that. Yeah.
They built it, and they now have a $70 million contract for the airport, one of our most important pieces of infrastructure.
Well, they learn from their mistakes, Billy.
My gosh. And they continue to work on water and sewer projects, crucial infrastructure in the county, thanks to Daniella Levine-Cava and her administration. Number 3. Affordable housing. Her administration cannot manage or facilitate an affordable housing program in the least affordable housing market in the entire country. They have millions of dollars to give away to landlords, of course, in a pretty misguided program. But they've only paid out about 3% of the entire program. They can't even they don't even know what they're doing with the applications. It's a mess.
I can't even imagine what the final ones are here.
Number 2, Miami-Dade County jail conditions.
Well, there's your affordable housing.
For 10 years.
No, we got to pay for that.
Yes. And we have to pay for this. A record number of inmates over the last 3 years since Daniella Levine-Cava became mayor are dying and committing suicide in the Miami-Dade corrections. And this is a problem that the feds have been overseeing for 10 years, going, you guys need to get your act together. And come October, the deadline is up and the feds could conceivably take over the Miami-Dade corrections.
Number 1's going to be juicy.
Number one is the juiciest of all. It's animal services, Dave.
Oh,
that is you like little. You like juicy.
I thought you were going to say, do I like dogs? I was like, yeah, we've been going over this.
we smoked dogs before, I guess. Right?
Animal services.
Hot dogs.
Animal services. This was to be the animal rights mayor, the environmentalist mayor. We have pollution in the bay, destroying manatees, habitats. We have marine life suffering. We have Lolita the whale, the orca from Miami Seaquarium, dying in captivity after over 50 years in the smallest tank for an orca in the world.
Well, all those dogs with the overpopulation, they did just bring them to the prison system and give them to the prisoners, and then they'll be it's like a service animal.
Or we bring them to one of your shows. Rita's not going to like this because,
I was going to say, that's a good segue. You bring it to my shows September 24th at the Dania Beach Improv. I'll be there with Forrest Shaw, who's a big manatee advocate, by the way. I love
Forrest Shaw.
We have the Mermen podcast, and all we do is talk about Lolita and manatees, and it seems like he steers everything in that direction.
I'm so excited for you guys because I used to go to your gigs like in the venues in Miami.
You were a huge supporter, man, in the early days.
And I love you guys are like local guys made good. And I see you traveling the world with Bert Kreischer, who's hilarious and amazing.
It's been a wild ride, man. It's been so cool. And then, so it's cool because Forrest and I have gone different directions. And then, because he went and opened with like Jim Jeffries and Bill Burr, and I've been open with Bert, and we've been headlining our own shows. And I don't get to see him that much anymore. So we're not, it's like here where we do shows together. So now we're going to go do this tour together and promote our podcast, The Mermen. Key West, Miami, Dania.
And speaking of barbecue.
Yeah.
Rita Schwartz is the co-founder of Pets Trust Miami. It's a nonprofit volunteer group focused primarily on reducing the stray animal population in Miami-Dade County. Rita, my understanding is that mission's not going so well. What is the problem?
It's horrible. We've been, in 2012, it was on the ballot and 500,000 people voted for the Pets Trust, which was to stop the killing of 20,000 animals that come into animal services every year historically. And 65% of the people voted for it. And our elected officials never implemented it. So since Mayor Cava has been in office for the last 3 years, she has not increased spaying and neutering. It stayed flat. It has stayed flat at 25,000 a year. The Pets Trust would be doing 120,000 spaying and neutering a year, the only way to get ahead of the overpopulation crisis. So we are falling farther and farther behind.
And my understanding is right now we have this newish $15 million animal services building for the county in Doral that is now at least twice, if not more, twice overcrowded, that they've now had to open or reopen the closed facility in another part of town, which looks like some sort of, I can only describe it as like an animal, like concentration camp or something out there.
It's a house of horrors. It's a dungeon. It looks like a jail cell. If you go there, you'll see it's surrounded by fences and gates and signs saying, if you enter, you'll be, put in jail. So, yes, 7 years ago, when they built the new shelter, that was their, that's how they're going to correct this. But as we can see, since they're not addressing the root of the problem, which is overpopulation, more and more animals come in. So now the new facility in Doral, we're up to $37 million. It's double capacity. Wow. These poor animals are, even though it's air conditioned, these animals are in small cages. They're not being walked. They're not with no human interaction. This is animal abuse to the highest degree. And now, they're putting the animals in the old dilapidated shelter that was deemed, deplorable 7 years ago. And these animals with no air conditioning in this record heat, no water. I was there, before we had the protest, animals outside with no water in this horrible heat for days. This is, like I said, animal abuse to the highest degree.
Rita, let's put the numbers to these facts here. The new Miami-Dade Pet Adoption and Protection Center can comfortably house up to 300 dogs, currently caring for over 650. It remains a no-kill shelter, but the conditions, seem beyond unacceptable there. Let me ask you this: What happened here? Is this? It reminds me a little bit of the kind of the invasive iguana and the python crisis. Like people took on pets and then didn't want pets anymore. Were people looking for comfort during the pandemic and then want to give them up? Why is this problem so out of control?
No, this is been going on for the last 10 years. And that's why in 2012, we came up with a solution. This has been going on for over 10 years. This is just an excuse with the pandemic. We actually had less adoptions during the pandemic. So this is just another excuse. Why we have so many animals has nothing to do with the pandemic. If you look it up, you will see that there were less adoptions. The reason why it looks better is because it was closed the whole time during the pandemic, so no animals were coming in.
So let me ask you this, though. People go to, with animals, unwanted animals they find on the street, animals that need food, shelter, animals that need to be spayed or neutered. Rest in peace, Bob Barker. I used to skip school to hear Bob Barker remind us that at the end of every Price is Right episode. But Rita, people go with these animals and the place is closed for $37 million. All this money we're spending, there's no right? They're turned away.
Our tax dollars are spent on a closed shelter. If you go there with an animal, whether it's a stray you found on the street or for whatever reason you need to surrender your dog or cat, they are closed intake. Right now, like you said, it's supposed to hold 300 animals. It's double capacity. It's 650 animals. These poor animals are caged. They're not walked. There's no human contact. And this is animal abuse because animals that are potty trained, they hold it. And for these animals that are not being let out and walked, it's animal abuse because they're stuck in these cages. And for Mayor Daniella Levine-Cava to say, oh, this is a safe, place for animals, it couldn't be farther from the truth. These animals are suffering, whether it be the new shelter or the old shelter, and the proof is in the numbers. For the last 10 years, 30,000 animals come in every single year. The adoptions have stayed the same, and spay neuter has been flat when it should be increasing desperately.
Rita Schwartz, Pets Trust Miami, Pets Trust. You have to add that S at the end. PetsTrustMiami.com. Please go to the website, find out what you can do. Thanks so much, Rita, for being here.
Thank you.
The Because Miami version of the Wheel of Issues is the Wheel of Despair.
It's always good news. I normally go on shows and we talk about comedy and barbecue and sometimes water polo even, and then it's the Wheel of Despair.
Dun, dun, dun.
Water polo. Let's add water polo to the.
I'm a big water polo guy, Billy.
Or Wheel of Despair. Yeah. We should or pickleball.
Yeah. See, I coach water polo so that I can raise young men and women up into leaders of our community through high school sports so that we don't have to talk about these despair issues. I try to keep kids from becoming proud boys. That's the point.
You're a regular Urban Meyer, a molder of men. Oh, no. A molder of men you are.
He has a murder on his
Swamp King's on their way. The original Swamp King. More like Speedo Swamps, but it's true, man. The Proud Boys stuff, right, that you're getting into, it's like,
why we don't know if we're getting into it.
Well, I think you've already mentioned it several times. When we were talking before, you're going to talk about it again. Trust me. I read the show sheet. All right.
Yeah. In fact, it's on the wheel 3 times.
I remember being a kid, and they always said like, join a team, not a gang. And I was like, wait, who's making the decision? But it's really true. When you have something that you're a part of, that's why these guys do all these political Proud Boys in it says a well-formed militia, and you're a kid and you're like, there's never going to be a militia again. We don't have those times. And now there's lots of militias.
No.
It's because people want to be a part of something.
It's a fraternity. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think sports are usually like the outlet for men to like express their emotions in ways that they're told to otherwise suppress. But like this is politics have become sports in that way. So you have the camaraderie of a team and something to root for. And
100%. Yeah. And when we were younger, I don't remember you like. You might have been into politics your whole life, but when I first met you and we'd have a beer at the Improv or whatever, it's not like it was everything we talked about, right? And now you're very heavy into politics because it's a very polarizing thing. It feels necessary that we're involved. When we had the luxury when we were younger to just be like, politics is for nerds. Like we didn't have to think about it every minute. Now you feel like you have to think about it every minute because it's like it affects so much of our life.
And that is why we call it the Wheel of Despair.
A lot of despair. You're right.
Roy, what are the topics for this week?
All right, we have Nazis.
Told you.
Proud Boys.
Wait,
told you.
Those are 2 separate categories?
Yeah, 2 separate categories.
1A, 1B.
Florida, man.
School vouchers. Shakedown Street.
That's about Miami.
Water polo. And the diminishment of black voters. It did not land on water polo. It's Nazis. Nazis, everybody.
Older of men here. Oh, it's Nazis! For this, at least the second, if not the third time this year, real-life neo-Nazis, not BLM, not Antifa, not the FBI, not Democrat undercover spies, real Nazis popped up in Central Florida, in Orlando. right outside Disney World, on that big, that big overpass over I-4. There they are. And the ones outside of Disney World, of course, were in addition to the swastika and the pedo world signs, they also had their proudly waving their DeSantis 2024 flag as well. This is what's happening in Central Florida. I don't got jokes for this. I mean, there's f***ing Nazis on the streets of Disney World.
Even in your heart, if you don't think you're a bad guy and you believe in the things you're saying and doing politically, if those people have your back and are cheering for you, you might want to second guess who's connecting with your viewpoints.
And he also hasn't said anything about it. Like Jimmy Buffett, he's just nothing to say about this. And that's the thing too. They picked Disney for a reason. They picked Disney because DeSantis. And these are the folks that he appeals to. Like, there's a direct straight line here from Ron DeSantis, his policies, and rolling out a red carpet for Nazis in Central Florida.
Well, rest assured, if I know one thing, it's that Jimmy Buffett hated Nazis.
What's next?
It did not land on water polo. The diminishment of black voters. That's what we are.
So finally, some good news this week, although I'm sure it won't last once it gets to the Florida Supreme Court. But a Florida judge found that Ron DeSantis's racially gerrymandered congressional map is, in fact, unconstitutional. And we talked about this, actually, Roy, you might remember, with State Rep Angie Nixon last week. She talked about that district, which was traditionally right across the Panhandle, majority black district, that Ron DeSantis deliberately gerrymandered to not only disenfranchise black voters, but to increase Republican representation in a traditionally black part of the state of Florida.
If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
That's another one of those things that when I learned about it as a kid, I was like, man, I can't believe people used to do that. Well, thank goodness I live in a world where we're past that, and no one would ever do that now. And then here we are, I'm in my 40s, and it's happening.
Roy, what's next?
It did not land on school vouchers. It landed on Shakedown Street.
Can we just... So can we just appreciate for a moment that there was good news on the Wheel of Despair this week? Can we have a moment?
I'm not as despaired.
Water polo's good news.
Yeah, I mean, of course, in the next several weeks, we will... it did not land on water polo.
You know how mad I'm going to be if it lands on water polo when I'm not here?
Molder of men.
Oh, I'll let you know.
So, Miami City Commissioner Alex Diaz-Laportilla, has been sued for a shakedown. And this is exactly the kind of corruption we've been talking about going on here in the city of Miami. They are calling it attempted bribery of an elected official and an unlawful bribery scheme. He tried to shake down, because of Miami, this guy that operates the Rickenbacker Marina. So, of course, it's a marina hustle, and this contract is up for grabs. And Diaz-Laportilla sent his bagman, a former city commissioner who was twice removed from office, who was disbarred, and who was arrested twice, once by the feds for mortgage fraud and money laundering, and once by the state for election fraud. How
do you find this stuff out? It's like a movie, dude.
You just look out the window in Miami, and this shit is just
it's on
happening.
It's on his Instagram bio.
It's a notification.
I mean, so this guy, Humberto Hernandez, has been like just a notorious scumbag and corrupt. He's now the commissioner's bagman. And all the commissioners now, and the mayor, of course, they all have bagmen or women. There's also bag women. Yeah. Because this is an equal opportunity corrupt place. Yes, what?
In Miami, we are definitely not woke.
Well, we're a little woke when it comes to our bagmen because we also have bag
We're a little
women.
sleepy. We're a little sleepy.
We're woke when it's convenient to what we want to be.
I don't know all the pronouns of all the bagmen and women, but there are bag men and there are bag women, and you literally, there is one particular commissioner who I was told, if you pay $100,000 to the Hardiman family, you will have Christine King's vote on the Miami City Commission. Oh, did I say those names out loud? I said those names out loud. That is, all the commissioners have a price and they all have gatekeepers, and you can't even get a meeting with them now unless you hit up Humberto Hernandez and he says, this is how much money I need here. Hear what they were doing with this marina operator who has operated the Rickenbacker for 40 years. They went to him and they said, allegedly in this lawsuit, you need to put this guy, our associate, into your deal, and then you'll get Commissioner Diaz-Loportia's vote and you'll get the contract. But we need our guy in on this thing.
I mean,
water polo. Let's talk water polo.
I don't know.
We've rendered the comedian speechless. Here's the thing, but this is par to use a water polo reference. Yeah. This is par for the course. Is that water polo? I don't know water polo.
It's sports terms. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just
Sports.
So this is
a birdie.
Do we wait, Roy? Do we have time for water polo? Let's roll the wheel again. Let's see where it lands.
Landed on Proud Boys.
Again.
I can't believe it.
Do Proud Boys play water polo? I mean, everybody loves water polo.
Yeah, no one disagrees. Not ones that I've coached. I'll tell you that, because I coach them up to be men of character.
Well, listen, these to be fair, these men nearly derailed a 220-plus year tradition of the peaceful transition of power in this country. That's pretty impressive.
If they had just been a little more organized, if they had just learned teamwork and worn Speedos, I don't know, man.
Speedos would have helped. Yeah. Aerodynamic.
I got to tell you, we did it. We did Proud Boys and water polo.
We squeezed it in, man. I'm proud of us.
We did it. We made it happen.
Here, I'll connect it back to politics. Are you ready? Watch me work.
Yeah.
So I just saw not too long ago on Instagram that where I played water polo in Miami, at Miami Palmetto High School, where I'm also a notable alum with Mr. Ron Magill. And one of the current
Jeff Bezos
and Kimbo Slice, and one of the current Supreme Court justices. My girlfriend that I dated while I was at Palmetto High School was running for a commission on Miami Beach. So Marcella Novella.
And Meadowlark's own Mike Fuentes.
Oh, there you go.
Palmetto, esteemed.
More people like that, or just regular people in the community, need to get involved in politics that have good hearts and are willing to do the right job for the people.
Dave Williamson Comedy.com. Check him out. The Merman
Podcast, Meet Dave Podcast.
With Forrest Shaw, who I love.
Yeah.
And I love you. And thank you so much for coming, but you for not bringing meat. I understand.
I brought some of my rubs. I sell an all-purpose seasoning rub. I brought you guys a box. You guys can buy them at DaveWilliamsonComedy.com. I'm coming back to South Florida. We're doing a whole tour. Key West, Miami, Dania Improv. Tickets at DaveWilliamson.com.
Comedy and a rub. It's a full-service operation.
Hey.
Every show's got a happy ending with Dave Williamson. Speaking of which, our Miami moment this week brings back Humberto Hernandez, Alex Diaz-Loportia's Bagman, and Classic Scumbag. This is a clip from Steve Kroft's 60 Minutes piece from 1998 called Welcome to Miami. And if you want to know what's plaguing the Miami of today, you need to look at the Miami of 1997 to 2001. That's something I want to talk about in the future on this podcast. In the meantime, your Miami moment, cocaine's.
In 1994, Hernandez was fired from his job as assistant city attorney because he was running a private legal practice out of his city office. He was also accused of ambulance chasing after the Value Jet plane crash in the Everglades. His associates allegedly were found passing out his law firm's business cards on a bus carrying families of the crash victims. After Hernandez was indicted last summer on the bank fraud and money laundering charges, Governor Childs removed him from the city commission. Hernandez ran for re-election anyway, and Miami voters, who don't seem to mind electing suspected criminals, returned him to office with 65% of the vote. Mayor Suarez then elevated him to chairman of the city commission.
This is almost a definition of a third world banana republic.